Hello there. Today I want to taste an everyday wine from a small, high-quality, family-owned wine producer, renowned for the wines that they make from this variety, Chardonnay. Sort of wine you can have on hand in the fridge, perfect aperitif, just ready to go for any occasion. The wine concerned is Kumeu River's Kumeu Village Chardonnay 2025, and the winery are actually very excited about this vintage of this particular wine, so that makes me think that perhaps we should be too. So is this the sort of utter bargain buy that we're all looking for? So the Kumeu River winery sits sort of literally just as you come into Kumeu. It's just across a small stream as you enter from the south. The town's located about 25 kilometres north of Auckland in the North Island in New Zealand, and the winery was founded here in 1944 by the Brajkovich family, who settled here having come from Croatia in the 1930s. The estate is particularly known for producing Burgundian-style Chardonnays grown around Kumeu, especially their critically acclaimed, award-winning single vineyard range of wines. The current generation of the Brajkovich family that are running the winery are four siblings: Michael, Paul, Mariana and Milan Brajkovich. Now in 2017, the family took a big step and purchased the Raysroad Vineyard in Hawkesbay. This is a vineyard that had been established in 2008 as a joint venture between Trinity Hill, a Hawkesbay wine producer, and Pascal Jolivet from the Loire Valley, a producer of principally Sancerre and Pouilly-Fumé. Now the vineyard is quite particular for Hawkesbay in being a limestone hillside. It's inland, it's probably slightly further inland and at a higher altitude than most of Hawkesbay's vineyards. It's about 180 metres above sea level. And since buying the vineyard, the Brajkoviches have been replacing the Sauvignon Blanc plantings with their preferred Chardonnay. They've been replacing the clone of Chardonnay planted in the vineyard. It had been clone 95, and they're replacing that with clone 15 and clone 548. And they believe these clones allow for a deeper and more nuanced expression of Chardonnay. The other thing they've done is they've moved to dry farming, so there's no irrigation going on here whatsoever. Now, in my tasting of the 2024 Kumeu River Chardonnays, it was the Raysroad that excited me the most. They were all superb wines, but this was the wine that I felt had really dramatically leapt forwards in terms of quality. Perhaps as a result of the changes that the Brajkoviches have made with the vineyard actually sort of starting to take greater effect. Now, this wine, of course, is referred to as Kumeu Village. And Kumeu, as I say, small town these days, now a sort of a growing outer commuter suburb for Auckland, really. And I think that fact sort of underlines the importance of the investment in Raysroad for the Brajkoviches, because this wine is not made from fruit grown entirely in Kumeu. And I believe currently it's actually the only Chardonnay made at Kumeu River that blends fruit from Kumeu with that grown in Hawkesbay. And the balance between the two, evidently 42% of the fruit came from the Brajkoviches vineyards in Kumeu, and the balance, the 58%, came from Hawkesbay. Of the Hawkesbay percentage, I'm told 32% of the total blend came from the Raysroad vineyard. I'm assuming the fruit making up the other 26% of this wine was purchased from neighbouring growers. And what the Raysroad constituent here should give to this wine is the sort of edginess that you get from Chardonnay that's grown on chalk soils. In fact, the blend here is a combination of some contrasting elements. The climate in Kumeu is generally that bit warmer than you find in Raysroad, certainly because Raysroad is at altitude. It's cooler than many Hawkesbay vineyards. So there is this contrast of richer fruit coming from the warmer vineyards in Kumeu, and you also have the contrast of the soil types, with Raysroad producing a completely different expression of Chardonnay, and that which you see from the heavy clay soils in Kumeu, which tend to produce fruitier, more full-bodied wines. Now, the 2025 vintage was outstanding, both in Kumeu and in Hawkesbay. The Brajkoviches are talking about beautiful fruit expression and an excellent concentration of flavours. Now, although the different fruit was grown in Kumeu and Hawkesbay, everything was vinified in Kumeu, with fruit being brought up from Hawkesbay by truck in the cool of the evenings. Now, everything was hand-picked. The label makes that absolutely clear. I assume it's likely to all have been whole bunch pressed. That's the way I understand they make all their other wines at Kumeu. And the wine was fermented using the indigenous yeasts that found their way into the winery from the vineyard, or that might have been operating in the winery already. Now, 38% of the fermentations took place in old French oak barrels. These were 228 litre Burgundy PS barrels, but they were all 5 years old or older. So although barrel fermentation will have added richness to the wine, there's barely any direct oak influence on the flavour. The remaining 62% of the wine fermented in stainless steel tanks, and all the wine went through malolactic conversion. Now, this wine will have received a shorter period of aging than the estate wines. This was released at the end of September, so I'm assuming this has had about sort of 6 months or so aging in barrel or in tank. So the blending of the two wines combines a richer fruit portion with a portion with fresher, more vibrant, energetic fruit. So let's take a look at the wine and see what we make of it, shall we? First thing to say is that actually there's quite a good intensity of colour. This is at least a medium yellow colour. There seem to be greenish hints. That could have something to do with the fact I'm looking through it with a field of grass behind me. Looking at the wine, it's labelled as having 13.3% alcohol, and it is quite readily forming tears on the side of the glass. So there's a relative viscosity there. This isn't a lightweight wine, certainly. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? I mean, to be fair, I can actually still smell the wine, even when I'm swirling it from this distance. There's a lovely creaminess initially that then gives way to lime elements, lime flower notes, white peach. There's a vibrant fruit, and the aromas are quite intense. Behind that there is a minerality. There are some flinty hints as well. No obvious oak notes. So let's have a taste and see what we make of it. The wine is dry, and there really is a lovely combination of zippy citric acidity, flinty mineral notes, and rounded, almost tropically edged fruit. There's quite a ripe peachiness, and yet at the same time there's also that sort of citric, limey nature. The wine is light to medium bodied, but actually at the finish there's a sort of an enduring creaminess that's filling out the back palate. Flavours are lasting really well. There's a lovely cut to the wine. I've seen the suggestion that these are wines that would go incredibly well with seafood, and I can certainly see that. I've tried previous vintages of this just with simple green-lit mussels and lettuce, and it's a lovely combination. The alcohol seems in balance with the fruit. It's just giving a little bit of weight to the finish. And as I say, the acidity is giving a lovely cut. It helps to give a long finish, but the finish isn't sharp. The finish is filling out with the leesy notes of the wine. So perhaps one question would be, is this an age-worthy wine? I actually think it might be. I think there's the potential for the two elements to harmonise slightly more, given 1 or 2 years further in bottle. Certainly the acidity gives the wine the ability to age, but it's not a huge wine. I wouldn't be putting this away in the cellar for 7 or 8 years. I think that would be asking a bit much of the wine. So what's my conclusion? Is this a bargain or not? I think I have to say, for a wine that's hand-picked, produced with indigenous yeasts, from a top producer and an excellent vintage, when it's a wine that's $25 at the winery compared to $45 for their estate wine, that certainly is a bargain. I think actually particularly this vintage, with its freshness and its vibrancy, I think the 2025 Kumeu Village Chardonnay is well worth picking up. I think it's a real gem at a lovely price. I took a look at the Wine Search aggregated critic score for this wine, and it's 90 out of 100, and I think that's exactly what I would score it as well. So thank you so much for watching. I'll round up now as I'm getting a little bit wet. If you've enjoyed the video, do please press the like button. If you have friends you think might enjoy it, please feel free to pass it on to them. I'd be very grateful to you for that. If you have any comments, please pop them in the comments box below. I'd love to know what you think about the wines I'm tasting, the tastings I'm doing, or anything else that relates to that. So thank you again for watching, and I do hope that maybe you'll manage to make some time and come and join me for another tasting in the very near future. Till then, bye for now.